Hi, it's Colleen Schmidt from Divination Counseling Service, here today, a little bit late, with the Uranus Ingress into Gemini. Everybody's been talking about it because it's the last of the slow movers to actually change signs. So we had Pluto go into Aquarius, we have had Saturn and Neptune move into Aries, and now we've had Uranus move into Gemini. So it's a really important time. We've historically never been where we are now, so we can't always predict well when there's so much going on in the skies. So let me just start by saying that as a person who really feels these planets, particularly the Aries point one, so personally, that it is a kind of a rough period for people. So I want to say that right off the top, that if you're going through something, whether it's health related, relationship related, your job related, realize that you are among many. And in some respects, all of us, okay? So I want to talk about this ingress chart. And I want to talk about some things that are rather interesting about this chart before I even get to the asteroids, okay? Like, let's talk about the fact that Zeus is stationed, okay? It's stationed in our 5th house and at 23 degrees, 58 minutes, okay? So it's really important. It's not so far out of the Aries point, and it is stationed, which does highlight it, okay? Doesn't stay stationed for long, no planet does. The station factor happens when something is going retrograde and then it begins to stop so it can go reverse, or the opposite. It's going direct, stops so it can go backwards. The stopping is what we call the station. So the station here at Zeus, okay, is kind of interesting. Basically, a few factors here that would make it rather interesting. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about what it represents. It represents war. It's explosions. It's also a sustained excitement. So if you were like working towards something, you would have, and you're being aspected by 23 degrees, 58 minutes, you would have the ability to keep that excitement level going throughout that process, despite how long it might take. Seeds are what Zeus represents. So it's not just guns and explosives and the obvious, but it's also seeds, the planting of seeds, creative seeds. It doesn't have to be literal seeds, although we are in this northern hemisphere at this point where we are planting. But it is something that you really want to pay attention to. Now, it's 23:58, and at 24:18, so literally 20 minutes away, is the asteroid Atlantis. And Atlantis is kind of an interesting asteroid to have here because it represents betrayal. So there could be a betrayal. It represents confidential information that could get put out there, and that's where the betrayal comes in, okay? It's privacy, okay? So, there may be things about wars that are supposed to be kept private, and it's interesting because information could come out. And it is in the 5th house, the house of expression, in the Washington, D.C. chart, okay? So if that's interesting, okay, I thought like, whoa. Okay, so how is the United States expressing herself through war? And where does private information or betrayal fit in? Now that's a big picture. What I'd like for you to do is, as just regular normal people, if you are or have an aspect at 23 degrees of Zeus. Now, interestingly, it doesn't aspect either the Aries point or the axis that we're associating with that ingress of Uranus. Okay, so that doesn't really play into that, but it's something that if you have something around 23, 24 degrees of cardinal, and I'm talking Aries, Libra, I'm talking Capricorn, I'm talking Cancer. If you've got anything at those degrees, pay attention. What's happening in your life that this Uranus ingress is bringing in? Uranus is change, okay? Uranus is, it's sudden, it's unpredictable, it's freeing. Okay, now that's really interesting, right? It's freeing. Interestingly enough, it's in the sign of Gemini, which is communication, information. What information are we getting? Now, here's an interesting. Remember that Zeus I talked about? Well, it does happen to be not only in a situation here where we're questioning that, okay, that the 8th house, the shared combined resources, is questioning the actions and expressions of that Zeus. And that may be where Atlantis comes in. So you can see there's some stuff going on here that could get very interesting. I'm going to leave it at that because I'm sure that on a personal note, a lot of you are already filling in the gaps. Now, as I always like to do, I'm going to go around the chart and I'm going to talk about what's on the, what is, if anything. Like, for example, right here in the 2nd house, we got nada. There's nothing here. The closest that, because it's 8 degrees of Cancer, and the closest we get is 6 degrees, I wouldn't really concern myself about that, okay? However, at 1610, this Taureau at 17.4 is in. And this is the United States chart, and I almost have to choke when I say this, but it's the bully. And I know that one of the reasons things aren't working out so well for the big guy is because he is a bully. And a lot of diplomats in particular don't really want to deal with bullies because that's not diplomacy and that's not about governance. And this is where this administration does tend to get things wrong. Okay, I mean, what else can I say? That's just an obvious. I think initially some of the changes that we'll see, because Ornamenta is about a degree and 12 minutes off, okay? And I have to say, I'm sorry, it's Faith On, that change is a vehicle, because that's what Faith On is. So that's not a really good connection, but I thought I'd bring it up, because you know I like to stay within a degree. However, Uranian goes out 2.5 degrees. So, let's move on. Oh, and by the way, this bully and Hygeia, be careful, okay? Adamitas is in there, not on the angle, but it's in there, okay? It's in that 12th house. Adamitas would be being stuck, but it's also the end of things, so, or the beginning of things. So it's, Adamitas is like a grounding kind of trans-Neptunian. But what we have here is a health, Hygeia is health and well-being with the bully. We can look at that a lot of ways, okay? Over here across the dial, right on that descendant at 16 degrees of, however, retrograde, is somebody's raging. Well, a bully is raging, and how good is that for someone's health? Please bear that in mind if that you are related to any of this. Okay, this 16 degrees of mutable is, I'm telling you, to rage, to overly push muscle systems, very bad for your health. Okay, so just a bit of a warning. I like to talk about this Rockefeller below. It's also retrograde. So this is stuff that's already ongoing, in process. It's happening. And Rockefeller is big money. And somebody's raging about money, big money. And it's a bully. So that's a lot. And it fits with a lot of what's going on. But realize, people, that, you know, if you're on the East Coast, such as I am, this chart does affect you as well as Washington. Okay. Next things I want to look at will bring us all the way up to the midheaven, okay, where we have palace, politics, enabling, people who just say what you want to hear. It's retrograde, it's ongoing, it's already happening, and it sits right on the midheaven, 2 minutes of orb. Please don't let politics absorb you too much, because we got a raging person, bully, at the helm. Okay? So take your breaks when you need to. I know everyone says that. Yes, we need to be engaged. Yes, we need to fight these monsters. We are fighting them. I'm hoping to be able to protest again soon. My foot's doing really, really well. I was right about my own prognosis, apparently, and so I'm crossing my fingers that I get to go to the next one. So as we move on, the next thing that I see, and this is interesting, okay, and it's right on the cusp of the 12th house. So you have to ask yourself, you know, this is happening more behind the scenes. But I'm going to tell you that people are overreacting, okay? And that's one of the reasons why sometimes we need to pull back from things like this, because of overreactions, okay? And they're overreacting to certain victories, okay? Now, the victories are by associates, and and that is in the house of it's associations. It's in the house of groups, okay? So there is a group that has called victory, but I will tell you that it's going to bring about a lot of overreactions, okay? And that is something to think about. So I just wanted to run through that really quickly. I really wanted to talk about our friend Zeus, who's stationed, and you could tell that it's a station because on Solar Fire, it actually comes with an S. You can see that right in there. Okay, so now I'm going to move from there, and let's talk about the dial. And we're going to talk about both the Aries point for this chart, and we're going to talk about the actual, and you can tell it's working, the actual placement of the axis of Uranus as it ingress, and you can see it right down here, at 0 degrees, 0 minutes of Gemini. Okay, so I want to start with the Aries point because I don't have as many telling asteroids as I do in the ingress. And the thing that's disconcerting about the ingress, although not surprising because Hades and Kronos are coming closer and closer and closer together. And I think I don't know if I've done a video on that or not. It's Kronos and Hades are both, you can see them, here we go, Hades and Kronos, and the sun. But Hades and Kronos are running around the sun right now. And that's bad decisions by people in authority. So if you work for a big company, even a small company, you may not be thinking that your superiors are making good judgment calls, and they're probably not. And it is what it is. But we are going to have to go through that, okay? And so I'll get to that whole axis of Uranus, but let's pay attention to what's happening with our sun as well. Okay, so here we have a pretty interesting combo, because first thing I want to talk about is Eros, okay? And Eros is right here at 29 degrees, and I know I have it marked here, now I can't find it. I know we've got 2954 as Apollonia. I know that Eros is, and let me check that, okay? Because I know I didn't have it written down. Okay. Oh, hold on. Okay, I'm sorry about that. I'm so these days. Of course, I am very affected by the planets. And by the way, even the 0-degree Uranus in Gemini is affecting me. Not in a bad way, fortunately, but it's still affecting me. Okay, what I want to talk about is Aragon up here. Aragon's coming with Apollonia, okay? So Apollonia is like Apollon, meaning there's more than one. It can be business. But what Aragon is, which is what I really wanted to talk about, is self-destructive behavior. We're going to see a lot of it. We're going to see a lot of it, okay? Now, the scary part is Uranus lasts like 7 years, okay? And this is an ingress chart, which means to some degree, over the next 7 years, we're going to see examples of the things that I talk about in this chart. I don't know how dominant they'll be in your charts, and it will depend on your charts, but I can tell you that you have to look at that. And Apollonia and Aragon, which means more than one way to self-destruct, or more than one person who's self-destructing, but it also relates to house. Okay, house, the building, what's housed. Okay, Urania is slightly outside of that. It's almost like Aries point makes a midpoint there, but what that means is logical. So what logical thinking? So is logical thinking causing the self-destructive behavior, or is it that because an Apollonia being there, or is it that the self-destruction is just inevitable? It's just logical. It's like if you're doing that, it's going to lead to this type thing. So I look at that and I see Aragon with Urania, and I think, and let me see if I can get some more information on that. Well, I have to say I like Martha's interpretation, as it is logical thought that is self-destructive. I was right. So it's convoluted. Logical thinking is basically what she used, the word convoluted, which I think is a really good word to use. Okay, so look for that, guys. That's in the Aries point here, and it's something worth looking at. The other thing is, please be mindful of health matters. It came up already. It's in there as a midpoint on the Aries point. So some of the things that we have here is we have Adamite child. And I really believe that this could be the fact that we've lost so many children in floods in this country. But it can also be like a stopping with children, maybe programs that are stopped that were related to children. It could be obstacles that children, or because someone's a child has a child has to deal with. It's the enduring child, a child who endures. We get Laverna, Laplace, and Malit. Malit is that really pondering, and what we're pondering is the theft and the lying. Well, especially if you're dealing with self-destructive businesses, or businesses that are not making good, or authority figures that are not making good decisions. Well, yeah, it's gonna play in. We're gonna be like really thinking about, oh my God, So Laplace is lies, Malit is our wondering, and we have Laverna for thefts and stealing. Okay, then we're going to move down, and we have Ganymede. And Ganymede is a little bit like, it's enabling at its highest level. Now, it's like being of service to somebody, but it's an enabling. So somewhere, someone's enabling the lies, the theft. Okay, so maybe that's what we're wondering about. All right. Also, Pan Hypatia. Pan is like the devil. The devil in our healthcare? Well, that could be anywhere, and that could be anyone. But think about, I can honestly say that I'm not somebody who runs to the doctor for everything. Fortunately for me, a lot of my stuff is, especially the physical, okay, especially what I just did to my foot. I was kind of able to diagnose myself because I was a trainer and I spent a lot of time taking anatomy, and there's a lot of understanding about the body. And checking for a broken foot required me going through a series of exercises, which I did, and I could. So I thought it might be sprain, although there was a point there where I thought maybe it is a stress fracture, only because it was very hard to put pressure, my body weight on my foot. But I will tell you that I have been able to, and it looks like it's going to be 6 weeks, which to me is a good sprain, okay, because I'm already on the road to recovery. So I don't really go there with the Hypatia is like a healthcare worker. It's a nurse practitioner, to be exact. And so with Pan, you would be the devil in the right. But let's look at it a different way. I've done a lot of research on this particular, and Hypatia is also astrology. Okay, and it's the devil in astrology. Okay, and one of the things I'll tell you as an astrologist right now, it's very difficult to predict because we've never been here before, and one of the ways in which astrologers do predictions is based on past consequences or past scenarios. Well, there is no past scenario for what's happening right now, but it is, and also look to situations where people who are astrologers are called the devil on some level. Okay, I've been, okay. So I think that was really interesting because as someone who's actually experienced that, that's why I left it till last, I can tell you that, yeah, that's a real thing, okay. And it makes me also realize that the research that I did on Hypatia is accurate. So that made me feel good. The Atropost Perkins is that when they tell you something's ending, they're pretending. Atropos is endings. But it's coming with Perkin, which, by the way, isn't very far from actor, but Perkin is a pretender. All right, so somebody's pretending that they're ending something. I can tell you, we already talked about Aragon and Apollon. I can tell you that, remember how I talked about Zeus? And I said there could be a betrayal there. It also looks like there's some kind of win. All right, so I'm not sure what that means. I don't know who's winning, but there's some kind of win. I think if we get peace, we all win. The next one is interesting. It's talking about, it's referring to cremations. Okay, so it's talking about cremations, which is interesting because I just read an article today about the cost of cremations. But Helena is also women, girls, especially young, attractive girls. And it could also be, and we just had a terrible tragedy with a whole bunch of girls. But it's also, look for this, just, because I like to do these things in the more mundane as well. Look for somebody who's getting an amazing haircut, or somebody who's going to go for some kind of haircut that is part of a makeover. Maybe somebody, a public figure, okay? Hubris is telling us, it's retrograde, that karma is coming. That we are going to be dealing with some heavy-duty karma. Albertus Magnus tells us that there's a big money. Remember, Rockefeller was in there as well on the United States chart, but this is for everybody. Big money, Urania, logical swindle. It's logical that big money was swindled. Okay, it's you know, if you do your research, you do your homework, you're going to see that happen. Okay, and so that brings me to the end of the Aries point already. So we didn't have as many asteroids either at this Aries point, but realize that in the Aries point, it affects us all. Okay, now the next part of what I did, and I'm going to do this before I go into the Uranus, is I actually went into the reports, okay? And what I did was I looked at things like the moon is opposite, the moon, which is trine Mercury, which is great because, you know, emotionally we're going to be able to really kind of filter it out through our thinking, is trine both Mercury and Saturn, okay? So we're, you know, we're able to contain and deal with our emotions, and we're able to really think them through. But the moon is opposite Venus, opposite Uranus, okay? And those two things are a little different, okay? Because moon opposite Uranus is very upsetting. Any moon-Uranus contact is very unpredictable emotions. And that can happen to us, whether it's us directly or it's somebody that we're hanging out with and whack, they whack, okay? So get ready for particularly women to act in ways that is unpredictable. But with the moon Venus, even in opposition, there is a sense of being loving, to handle these matters in a loving way, despite the fact that emotionally we might be hurt or angry, okay? And it's also in opposition to something that might be stopped, okay? So I really thought those were kind of important, and I did want to review them. The sun is parallel Jupiter. It's, no matter how bad things are, it's still better for us. And with sun parallel ascendant, in this chart anyway, you would be, and also sun trine node, that's everybody. It really isn't, it really is okay. And it really will work out for the best, regardless of how it may, you, okay? So I wanted to quickly go through that. That was another thing that I was looking at. Now, the final part of what I want to do here is I really want to talk about Uranus, okay? And we'll just take this back by the minute. And there we are at 60 degrees smack on, or 15 degrees of fixed. It also works with 230 right here. Pythias here, we'll get there, we'll talk about it. It's about there, because that's there within a degree, but it's not right at it. And it also hits 730 down here. Okay, so 730 would be, oh yeah, right there, where we actually have, what is that? That's there. Let me check, because I know there it is. So Vesta's in there. That's what I wanted to see. And Vesta is talking about, especially as it equals the node. Okay, so let's just start with that. Let's just start with, and that node is at 2134, and we're going out. So it's like 4 minutes out, okay? But as you can see, even though I might minus, there it is, it's still in. Mathematically, it's still in. So basically here we have a Saturn-Mars, so there's going to be some heartbreak, ascendant sun within our environments, and maybe even through authority figures. There's a lot of pressure because of authority figures. So especially as it relates to the home environment. So there's a lot of things going on just within the node Vesta, because Vesta is things that are at a distance, okay? Could be friends at a distance, work at a distance. It is work and goals. And then you got nodes. It could be maybe distancing yourself from some work connections, or maybe there's work connections that are at a distance, okay? So it can work either way. But let's talk about the rest of this, okay? So so we get to the cardinals. Okay, let me just read this off to you. 0 degrees of mutable, which is down here, also equals 15 degrees of cardinal, which I showed, and 22 degrees of mutable, which I'm showing right now, equals 7 degree of fixed. So we've come up with now our axis points, okay? When I start with the Aries, sign of Aries, because I'm going to go through this by astrology, the first thing I see is Orpheus and coin. And it could be people are just really sad about money. There could be crying over money-related issues. But it's also crying because of theft. So please, please try to keep your valuables safe. McGregor, which is in 6 degrees of Taurus, which, as you know, that it's 7:30 fixed, and there at 6:30, 1 degree, is McGregor. And that's, oh, I'm sorry, that's the con man and the scam artist. That comes up later, okay? So that's our theft. Well, that's who perpetrates the theft. Then we get to Pythia and Blarney. Okay, so Blarney's lie. Pythia is like you have an intuition how things are going to work out, but then it doesn't work out exactly as you thought. So there's always this little twist with Pythia. It's like, oh yeah, that's what I thought, but not quite. And Blarney is lies. So it could also be that lies don't have the intended effect. That could be one. It could be that people are intuitive about the lie. I mean, there's a lot there because Pythia is also intuition. So it's, Blarney's lies. It's simply put, there's no other, Blarney is lies, okay? It's like asteroids. They only mean so many things, which is why I like them so much. Because unlike planets or transit-tunians, which scale over lots of general keywords, asteroids don't work like that. Our next combination, which is right around the sun, okay, which is at 15 degrees of cardinal, okay? Remember when we talked about that Hades Kronos, that is a factor in this, which is something we're going to see over the next 7 years. And I believe it's so, because over the next 7 years is when Kronos and Hades comes together, okay? And that's bad decisions made by authorities. It's also very corrupt authorities. Okay, emphasis on the word corruption. There's your Hades. Okay, so here we have house, sun, and dearest. And it makes me think that there's something going on related to something that is stopped and confined. Something will be stopped and confined. Okay? Could be a house arrest for some cases, all right? That's in this axis. Eureka, yeah, okay? So if you got a con man, a thief, and we're going to get into the thief stuff in a minute, there's a really good possibility, eureka, there's an arrest, okay? So if you do happen to be a victim, please do what is necessary to get that retribution. The other thing that we have here is karma. Well, eureka, karma! Okay, so they kind of go together, so I'm going to move on. South Node is with grief. It's our grief. We're just grieving. We're going to be doing a lot of grieving. I think the earth changes and the things with the weather will cause that. I think the bad decisions made by people in authority will cover that. I think there's going to be a lot of grief. Lacks. There's going to be a lot of grief too because we lack things. We lack money. This is really going to hit everybody's pocketbook. I always said by August. This is for July 7th. So I'm going to be doing the full moon, which occurs on the 10th, either also today or tomorrow. So that too I've been working on, okay? So I'm going to tell you, there is going to be lack. It's in there. All right? And I think we're going to be dealing with lack for a while. So please save, save, save. And stop being spenders. I did talk about Vesta, our work, our goals, and how they equal Pythia. And things aren't quite going to work out the way we expect. This next combination, now this is retrograde. I'm going to be going into the retrogrades now. And here I have Sly and Schmidt. Schmidt is, I want to say a murderer, because I do believe, now I went back to check the website, she didn't have anything on it, but further work that I had done in the past with her and the crime group, that's a perpetrator, it could be a killer, and it's coming with a Sly. So there's a sly killer in our midst. And remember, we have bad leaders. So I don't think we have to look too far for that. Henderson and Soma tells us that we are not going to be very social as all of this is going on. And body language will mean a lot. It's about body awareness, but I also feel, as somebody who is a hermit, naturally, and I get very hermity when times are tough. I totally pull my energy in when I have issues that are difficult to deal with. Example, there is no SEO on my website because I would not renew it. I go into these phases where I really do Soma Henderson. I become a hermit. I lock myself away physically, not just emotionally and mentally, physically. And I'm very discerning about who I'm around. I'm very affected by what goes on in the world, and I know that. And instead of going out there and then acting out against it, I just prefer not to be involved. If somebody is hateful to me, and that's happened. It's happened recently. It's happened with an astrology group. I will cut myself out. I won't argue with you. I'm not going to fight with you. I'm going to wish you well, and I'm going to walk away, because that's how I deal with things. It's also in the chart. But I do want to say that I won't be alone, that there will be many who will be joining me in the closet, so to speak. And the last thing I want to talk about is, I want to talk about this with something else, okay? It's 3 minutes out from the Aries point. I'm sorry, not the Aries point. It's 3 minutes out from affecting the 20-degree mutable point, okay? 30 mutable point. But it's so close. It's only 3 minutes out, and it's so close to the next asteroid, which is Berlin, that I gotta say that, Nessus is, the charmer, it's in reverse. Berlin, to me, in this, is slow learners. Not thinking right. But it's also, could the person charming us be not quite right? Are we being charmed by somebody who's not altogether there? Or has a mental issue? Or is there something not right? And I'm going to leave it there for that. Okay? As a matter of fact, I'm going to leave this video there. I want to remind you that this is a 7-year process. But how do I put this? I really feel the impact of the ingress is more important on the initial ingress than it is, and I always say this, the first ingress is the strongest. Even if it goes back out and comes back in, the first one is the strongest. But over the 7-year period, some of this will wane. And I guess that's what I'm trying to say here. If it were a faster mover like Venus or Mercury, it doesn't wane as much. But I am going to tell you that focus of the sun with the Hades Chronos, that is something that we will be looking at for the next 7 years. So please don't just, as I used to say to my girls when I was training them, don't just hand somebody respect because they have a title. That's not what brings respect. What brings respect is you have to earn it. And you have to earn it. It's not just given. And I really feel that we're going to really be learning that lesson over the next 7 years. Example, I don't like this president, okay? I don't like this regime. I have zero respect for anyone working in this cabinet, okay? So just because you call yourself the president does not make you have respect from me. No, there have been many presidents I don't respect at all because of their bad decisions. And I think we're living that reality right now. And I don't think we're the only ones. I'm just saying. With that said, look for that even in your day-to-day life. The policemen that are around you, the people who are administrators that are high up in business. Just because somebody tells you how great they are does not mean they're great. Respect is earned. It's not just given. With that, I want to say, until we meet again, I wish you only happy